Sanatan Kahadasarago Nata Patita Pavan Ragu Nata Patita Pavan Kahamora Bhata Yuga Kaha Kaviraj Kahamora Bhata Yuga Kaha Kaviraj Eka Kale Kota Gela Goranata Raj Ekakale Goda Gela Goranata Raj Poshone Kuti Bonata Anale Pashibo Poshone Kuti Bonata Anale Pashibo Goranga Gunera Nidhi Kota Gele Pabo Goranga Gunera Nidhi Kota Gele Pabo Se Saba Sangira Sange Ye Korlo Bilas Se Saba Sangira Sange Ye Korlo Bilas Se Sangana Paya Kande Naru Tamada Se Sangana Paya Kande Naru Tamada Yanilo Premadana Koruna Prachur Anilo Premadana Koruna Prachur Eno Prabhu Kota Gila Chaya Thakur Eno Prabhu Kota Gila Chaya Thakur Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, go to Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Asto Tarasata Shishimad ISKCON founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki. Prem Shri Goho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Syamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki. Vrindavan Dham ki. Shri Dham Mayapur ki. Ganga Maya ki. Yamuna Maya ki. Bhakti Devi ki. Tulsi Maharani ki. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to Sri Guru Gauranga. My dear God brother, Shankarshan Prabhu, other devotees, welcome to the memories of wonderful devotee, Yamuna Devi. For some, by some wonderful mystical arrangement, Yamuna Devi, of course, she had traveled around the world with her deities. Somehow she ended up in a very remote part of the North American continent in Canada, a place called Sharanagati. And Prabhupada told the temple president in the 70s, you should call this place Sharanagati because it's extremely austere, cold winters and very hot summers. It's a valley that we acquired in the 70s. Very large, but not so conducive to agriculture. Anyway, somehow Yamuna had moved up from the USA and she'd met devotees in Sharanagati. Many of them are Prabhupada disciples who had retired or moved from the big cities to Sharanagati. I think there's about 14 or 15 Prabhupada disciples there from around the America and Canada mainly. Yamuna really liked it because it was a nice friendly community of devotees, and she very much liked it there. So herself and Dinatarani, as we know, Prabhupada told Yamuna and Dinatarani they should stay together and worship Banki Bihari. They had deities, and wherever they went, they worshipped these wonderful deities, Bani Bihari. So we were blessed with the association of Yamuna. Yamuna particularly inspired a lot of the young women and the young girls there. She organized various programs for what she called the milkmaids of Sharanagati. Many of them were young, below teen or above teen, but not more than 18 years old. And she would organize various programs teaching them cooking, beginning stages of cooking, and she would discuss her cooking pastimes that she had with Srila Prabhupada. If she prepared for Srila Prabhupada, I think she traveled and cooked for Srila Prabhupada. How many years? 2 years? 3 years? So if Prabhupada really liked it, he would go like this. But if it was exceptional, Prabhupada would go like this when she'd bring in her preparations. And she studied the various cuisines of India, Gujarat, Maharashtra, various places. She was a very attentive to detail person, extremely attentive to detail. In fact, she decided to build a house made of straw. They're called straw bale homes. And she commissioned some architects, Vastu Shilpa architects in southern India to design this house. So this house was, every single square inch of this house was based on the Vastu Shilpa, the Vedic architectural scriptural authority. So then she went to the Canadian building authorities. Told them, I'd like to build a straw bale house. And everyone takes to Yamuna. They just love Yamuna wherever she went. And she searched. She couldn't find an engineer that would sign the coding for this house. But finally she went into a mountain region of Western Canada where there's lots of alternative people, let's say. Many yoga people and hippie people and so on in the mountains. And she discovered an architect, an engineer who was, he was on board with the government of Canada, and he designed her home based on her Vastu Shilpa descriptions and so on, and he signed off on coding and so on. So then devotees would come and help Yamuna build this straw bale home. It wasn't very large. It was about 1,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. And everything, the beds, how does the direction the beds were in, the altar, the kitchen, outhouse, everything, bathrooms and so on, everything was very specifically arranged. And that's what we learned from Yamuna, attention to detail, very attentive. I was struck by Yamuna. As soon as she got to Sharanagati, she immediately started a morning program. I mean, the winters there are like minus 20 Celsius, minus 30 Celsius. A warm day in winter is minus 10 Celsius. So we're not so bad in Vrindavan. And the lake, we have a lake on our property, a large lake, and it was frozen, this much ice. So you can imagine these two older ladies living in this austere area of North America. And so many devotees would volunteer to serve her and helped her in many, many ways. We helped many of the men there helped build the house that she wanted. She had adobe floors and so on. So early in the morning, at minus 30 degrees, we'd all go to Mother Yamuna, Yamuna's, she didn't like being called Mother Yamuna, Yamuna's morning program. And the way she set it up was everyone got a chance to lead kirtans, artis. The Bhagavatam class was the formula formulated in such that everyone got to give their realizations, kind of pass around the baton, and everyone would give their realizations on the verse. So Yamuna was a person who was really perceptive in terms of human qualities, very perceptive. You were in the room for 30 seconds, she could figure you out right away. And we have a daughter that's a very strong personality. And as soon as she came into the room, Yamuna said, "Oh, this girl, she's going to be quite something." Immediately recognized the qualities of our daughter, who is a very kind of trendsetter, trailblazer type personality, alpha female. So Yamuna took these girls in and gave them so much shelter. I think once a week or once a month they do address the deities, once a month?
Once a week for the deities.
Once a week, just the deities, Bani Bihari. Wherever she went, she had this huge altar made in India, rosewood altar. And wherever she moved to, she would set up this large altar with Bani Bihari deities. And the worship was highly elevated, I'd say sophisticated worship. Very, very pristine altar consciousness there. So my wife Karuna had a lot more association with Yamuna than I did, as I was doing a lot of traveling and so on. So I'll hand you over.
Hare Krishna. My name's Karuna Mai, and I'm very grateful to be here in Sri Vrindavan Dham. We stay in Mayapur now, and to be here on Safala Ekadasi for Yamuna's disappearance is very, very special. When I met Yamuna, I actually didn't know who she was. I didn't know that was Yamuna Devi. And I recall feeling very moved by just speaking to her briefly. And it wasn't until a day or two later that I was informed of exactly who she was. Spending time with Yamuna Devi, as my husband had mentioned, you saw her maximize the smallest detail. We actually had an entire festival in Sharanagati where each devotee's home brought their Archa Vigraha, brought their deity, and Yamuna had outfits made for every deity in Sharanagati. So there's about 25 homes. And we had a parrot festival. And each outfit had been embroidered with little parrots in Vrindavan, and she brought it back. And it was a 10-hour festival this day, and it was completely focused on pastimes of Krishna. But she created this whole community-focused, centered festival on parrots. And it was amazing, because we would have Rath Yatras every year, and that was blissful, and everyone was doing hard work. But this one, where we were all in a room together, and she would do these things where she would take the smallest detail and just magnify it. I can't say, from the core of my heart, I can't say that I had even remotely the maturity to understand the personality that we had the good fortune to associate with. And I don't want to sound artificial, but she genuinely presented Srila Prabhupada to us. She helped us meet Srila Prabhupada. She helped us love Srila Prabhupada. And it was a very formidable time in my own devotional life to be in her association and just observe her behavior, which was completely focused in the ashram on Radhabana Bihari. You weren't allowed to call it Yamuna's house. It was Radhabana Bihari Ashram, or Bhakti Kuti, after Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, after his Bhajan Kutir in Jagannath Puri. And I had all kinds of information to share, and just sitting with a mic is is helping all that information just flow away from me, so I can't share it adequately. When Yamuna had been in the movement for 4 years, in 1971, she wrote a Vyasa Puja offering to Srila Prabhupada, which she presented to him in Calcutta. And the devotees in Sharanagati gathered together and they composed a song of this Vyasa Puja offering translated from English into Bengali. It's a beautiful composition. And we're going to play it. It's just a couple of minutes long. And I encourage you to listen to the translation, the English, and listen to the depth of this prayer that Yamuna Devi had. And remember that she was only 4 years in the movement at this time. I've been in the movement for a quarter of a century or more, and I can't touch the depth that she had. She really invited people to experience bhakti with her and was genuinely open to anyone coming to her, whether they were senior godbrothers and sisters or somebody brand new. She opened her heart, opened her home, and invited them in, and really helped nurture the seeds of bhakti in everyone, whether that seed had been fructified or if it was, just on the border of coming. So I was searching the last 2 days to share some recordings of Yamuna Devi. Her very favorite bhajan was Hari Hari Bifale. And I was like, okay, we should share this one. And then as I kept searching, I just wanted to share everything. Please go on SoundCloud, go on YouTube, search Yamuna Devi, and listen to her speak, listen to her prayers, listen to her speak about Srila Prabhupada. It is so enlivening and encouraging in your spiritual life. So I will ask Prabhu to press play, and we will listen. Please listen to this prayer. Remember, 4 years old in Krishna consciousness. Thank you.
Thousands, millions of souls are wandering this world for millions of births. Some fortunate ones attain the treasure of devotion, which is like a beautiful blooming vine by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. Oh, my eternal spiritual master, I beg this mercy. May I be in constant remembrance of the dawning of love for the divine couple's lotus feet.
Shri Guru Kripa Madhyami Yugal Charana Prema Prakashite Smarana Kori.
Ravana Kirtana Mahamantra Premega Umara Kripaya Bhakti-lata Bija Prabhurita Avedai. I pray to sit in the groves of Braja, hearing, chanting, singing the Mahamantra, great love. By your mercy, the seed of Bhakti-lata will then sprout. Oh, my eternal spiritual master, I beg this mercy. May I be in constant remembrance of the dawning of love for the divine couple's lotus feet.
Vidyama Shri Guru Vedima Madhyami Yumala Charana Prema Prakashite Smarana Padamachaya Kamakrodha Loba Aham Karibhata Namasankirtane Jinyajariva Esabha Mayara Shaka. Hypocrisy, envy, lust, anger, greed, and the false devotee ego. By Nama Sankirtan, may I sever and discard all these weeds of Maya. O my eternal spiritual master, I beg this mercy. May I be in constant remembrance of the dawning of love for the divine couple's lotus feet. Vidyama Shri Guru Vedima Madhyami Yumala Charana Prema Prakashite Smarana Gauri. Vrindavan Gada Radha Damodara Priya Saundarya Prakashinara Kapakshana Shama Payaridaya Sarvanare Bhasyama. Then in Vrindavan, in the glow of beloved Radha Damodar's beauty, I will catch that wistful gaze, and my heart will be consumed with all joy. O my eternal spiritual master, I beg this mercy. May I be in constant remembrance of the dawning of love for the divine couple's lotus feet. Nitama Shri Guru Vedima Madhyami Yugala Charana Prema Prakashite Smarana O my spiritual master, you are truly a pure devotee. Mercifully, you gave us the secrets of Radha's service to Krishna. O my eternal spiritual master, I beg this mercy. May I be in constant remembrance of the dawning of love for the divine couple's lotus feet.
May I drink of the flood of devotion. Giving up arrogance and ignorance, I will sing of your place in my heart forever. O my eternal spiritual master, I beg this mercy. May I be in constant remembrance of the dawning of love for the divine couple's lotus feet.
Hare Krishna. So that was her offering to Srila Prabhupada, probably in 1970, 71. Oh, I just have a couple of memories. One is that when Yamuna was in the Apple studios of the Beatles, she was singing Kabe Habe, or Hari Hari, which one was she? Baja Hure Mana, and George Harrison secretly recorded it. And then he approached her and he said, I can make you a big star, big rock star. And she declined. When she was in Sharanagati, sometime in the early 2000s, George Harrison's son had a very close friend. They were in school together. And he was a filmmaker. He had become a filmmaker. His name is Benji. And he came with all his equipment to Sharanagati. And he approached Yamuna to make a biofilm on Yamuna. A very, very gentle, polished gentleman from England. And he approached her humbly and asked, can I make a biofilm about you? And Yamuna humbly declined. She said, I'm not worthy of such a thing. So this was her mood. She was very, very, always very humble and self-effacing. And led by her behavior, set a wonderful example of Vaishnava qualities, the wonderful qualities of a devotee were manifest in her. So those were some of the stories. I remember that whenever she would have constant kirtan in her home, and she'd have little instruments for everyone. She'd get all these little instruments from India or wherever. And as soon as the kirtan started, her face would just like a full moon, just break out in a huge smile, and she loved the kirtan. She just break out like the shining moon, during the kirtan. Very nice. Very warm atmosphere in her home, constantly inviting devotees there for worshipping Bani Bihari and having nice kirtans and readings. A lot of time she spent going deep into the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. She really delved deeply into his life, and also Narottam Das Thakur. She was greatly touched by these two great acharyas. And she would always give us little tidbits of stories about her, her pastimes with Srila Prabhupada, which are in the books Lifetime of Devotion, 2-volume series of her biography books. The train pastime, I think everyone knows. Srila Prabhupada wanted some nice fluffy white rice. And she went looking for the kitchen, and they said, no, you can't use our kitchen, this is a government train. And then she went after the conductor, and she was standing near the where the two carriages meet, and you can practically jump right off the train. And the conductor, he said, I forbid you to use our kitchen. She said, well, my life is useless if I can't please my spiritual master. And Yamuna says, she was kind of using it as leverage. She said, I might as well just jump off the train and give up my life. And the conductor, of course, panicked. And he said, no, it's okay. He's probably seeing this crazy American lady on a train, young woman on a train. What's she gonna do next?
This was between Kurukshetra.
It was between Kurukshetra and Delhi, coming down on the Punjab Mail, I think it was called, Punjab Mail train. So she said that when she got the pot, it was a huge pot, but they spent a lot of time cleaning that pot and getting all the charcoal and black off the pot and make sure it's very clean. Then she had to manage a tiny bowl of rice in this huge pot. So that's a wonderful story that she told. Then she gave stories about when she won the highest award of cookbooks, and it was highly surprising to all the contestants from around the world, these French chefs and so on, and how somehow she won this great award, best cookbook, and it was a vegetarian cookbook, Lord Krishna's cuisine. It's another great element to contribution of Yamuna's wonderful qualities. So those are some of the memories I have. George Harrison trying to get her to be a star and her declining. Her commitment to Srila Prabhupada was just amazing. It's amazing commitment. Very focused on Srila Prabhupada. Constant focus when you had her association. She would often say, somehow by some good fortune, I had a special relationship with Srila Prabhupada. When they were building Krishna Balaram Temple, perhaps you can tell that story, but there were some problems. There was a lot of cheating going on, and this schedule was not on time, and Prabhupada came here, and they were telling him, the organizers, Guru Das, and who else? Shyamasundar was here? Surabhi, the designer of the temples, and they kept promising Srila Prabhupada, yes, we're right on schedule. And Prabhupada came and he said, there's no way we can have this temple open, and he had invited all the, the VIPs and so on. Yamuna told us that Prabhupada approached her and said, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me that it wasn't anywhere close to being ready for opening? So he had a lot of faith and genuine dependence on Yamuna's perspectives and so on. Hare Krishna, thank you. We'd like to ask my god brother, or who's next? Who would like to speak next? Krishna Prabhu, speak about Yamuna.
So my story is very brief. She made me a devotee. Here's how it happened. I was in Austin, Texas. I was a popular singer-songwriter, and I was attracted by Vishnu John Swami to become a devotee. And George Harrison has come out with My Sweet Lord. All right, I just follow George Harrison, write Krishna conscious songs. Yeah. And not going to become one of those initiated devotees, no way. But Vishnu John Swami is very tolerant and encouraging. He said I could live in the temple. See, there was one famous band in those days called the Jefferson Airplane, and one of their members had lived in a monastery. And and that inspired him to write a song that became a big hit with the Jefferson Airplane called Good Shepherd. So I was thinking, he lived in a monastery, and that improved his songwriting. I'll also live in the Hare Krishna monastery to improve my Krishna conscious songwriting. Yeah. So he let me come in. I was living there with the brahmacharis. But I'm not going to become a disciple, no way. But I'll be writing Krishna conscious songs. And I did. I wrote some, and they were appreciated. I was invited in the University of Texas to sing one of my Krishna conscious songs for the students there. And I was on a good track with Krishna conscious songwriter. But one day, we're out on Harinam, and some DJ from a radio station came over. He had this record called the Radha Krishna Temple Album from Apple Records. He thought it was too spiritual to play on their radio station. He thought Hare Krishna's probably like this. So we had the Radha Krishna Temple Album on Apple Records. Wow. So my service in those days was the vacuum, the temple room rug. So we had a record player there in the temple, and I put that on the record player. I was vacuuming the rug, you know. And this got to the second cut. You know that second cut? Samsadadava nalalita loka tranaya karyunya gana gunatavam praptashakayana gunanavasya. I'm vacuuming around. And I heard, so it's an amazing thing. Yamuna was there with the 5 other London devotees, and I was awestruck. The love in their voices. I'd never experienced love before. You know, the love your dog, love your girlfriend, love your country, love your parents, love your guitar, whatever. But this was a new kind of love. I'd never tasted or experienced that kind of love. And when I was vacuuming away, that it's just boom. In other words, I was licking the outside of the honey jar, you see. You know, experiencing Krishna consciousness on the outside of the honey jar. There's a little honey on the outside, right? But now these Yamuna and these devotees, they open the jar on the honey lid, the lid on the honey jar, and I got to go inside and see what it's like on the inside. The love they had for Prabhupada, the love she had and the other devotees, the love they expressed was so powerful. It was so amazing. It was so absolutely wondrously stupendous. I never tasted and experienced anything like that in millions and millions of lifetimes. And the tears just came streaming down the face. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful if I gave my life to Prabhupada? And I said, when I got to get initiated. So that's my pastimes about with Yamuna. She made me a devotee. Ki Yamuna Devi ki jai.
Omagiratarandasya jananjana salakaya jaksun militanyena tasmai shri gurave namaha. Yamuna would start every activity she did with that prayer, acknowledging how much dependence she had on her spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master. And she loved telling the story of how when she first met Srila Prabhupada. Do you all know that story? She went to New York for her sister's wedding. And she met Srila Prabhupada, and he told her, he says, it's usually the woman's family who provides the wedding. He said, so you should help me cook. So she came the next day, help Srila Prabhupada cook. And throughout this time, he would have to remind her, go wash your hands, go wash your hands. And so she loved telling that story and joking about this. But the one thing about this was that from the very beginning, she had an unshakable sense of humility and faith in Srila Prabhupada. And she didn't mind being chastised by him, and she never took any offense or felt slighted by his corrections. And she was even amazed that she never felt that way, and that she took those corrections to the core of her heart, bringing them out like little golden nuggets of encouragement for other devotees and for herself. She considered it an honor to be chastised by her guru, by Srila Prabhupada. She said it demonstrated enough care, that he cared enough to correct her. And Yamuna felt strong caring from Srila Prabhupada, and she doubled her effort to correct whatever he found to be needing improvement. And in this very significant way, she was able to perfect her spiritual life. And I wanted to, her words are really significant, because from the words, it really reflects the condition of the heart. And so this is from a Vyas Puja offering, another one. And she says, I remember you asked me to grocery shop for my sister's wedding feast in the morning, and then assist you in cooking for the remainder of the day. First, I bungled the shopping and then made numerous blunders trying to make aloo kachoris for the next several hours. By the time I thought I might not be capable of anything you asked me to do, but you were so patient, and in course of that day imparted many basic Vaishnava cooking and kitchen precepts. Further, while you single-handedly prepared a multi-course wedding feast, I watched you chop, peel, mince, stir, mix, fry, braise, and so on, and often using your hands rather than tools as equipment, and noted your kitchen ease, focus, and expertise. I was fascinated by everything about you. In this connection, I pray to share these things that you have taught me, especially with the younger generation, now poised on the launching pad in hopes that they may take these instructions to heart. I also remember the wedding ceremony that evening. A fire blazed in the dead center of your small living room that we had met only 24 hours previously, with smoke so thick I was coughing. Again, I watched you, this time in a Swamiji role of officiating priest, chanting Sanskrit prayers and hymns, as you lovingly gave away my only sister in marriage to an old friend, both initiated devotees for only 2 weeks. In this connection, I pray that all vows and prayers spoken by me to you as sacred fire yajna be followed purely. And then when Yamuna went with Mukunda and Janaki to San Francisco and opened the temple there, and they had arranged this rock concert that Srila Prabhupada was to attend. And she reflected on his arrival there in San Francisco of January 1967. She says, "I remember your January 1967 arrival in San Francisco, how you seemed to glide down corridors, your cane stepping out before you, a dog Ralphie sliding adeptly in front of your feet, and group members positioning themselves to get a first glimpse of you. Your smiling eyes drank it all in as you acknowledged those who were familiar to you and charmed the newcomers. In this connection, I pray that the compassion I saw in you when you delivered Krishna consciousness grows in my heart and manifests by your mercy in my own attempts to give Krishna bhakti to others." So she goes on to say, Swamiji's behavior from the very beginning was the most glorious thing to behold. He slept very little, and his entire being was dedicated to instructing us and encouraging us. From the onset, he allowed us entrance into his personal practice by teaching us how to clean, how to cook, how to chant, how to dance, and slowly transformed us into devotees of Lord Chaitanya, wondrous Sankirtan movement. He very carefully studied each of our mentalities and was able to somehow dovetail our propensities in Krishna's service. He would find the smallest talent or ability in us and fan it, all the while making us believe we were doing something wonderful for Krishna. And Yamuna, she also says, "I remember in San Francisco the tears you shed the night your first initiated disciple informed you he wanted to leave your association and his devotional service. How with his head in your lap and your hands stroking his head, you implored him to stay in our company, practice Krishna consciousness, and experience a wonderful life. How you explained that you might die at any moment, and that all of us had a serious responsibility to take up Krishna consciousness and try to perfect our lives. We collectively felt a sense of urgency that was compelling and profound. In this connection, I pray that this sense of urgency never leaves me." This was a special group of devotees, the 6 householders, Yamuna, Gurudas, Mukunda, Janaki, Malati, and Shyamasundar. And they worked very well together. And each of them had great talent and musical expertise, cooking, charisma. And it was so wonderful how they ended up going to England, this was a huge accomplishment for Srila Prabhupada. This was something that Prabhupada really wanted to do for his spiritual masters. So, but when they went through a lot of austerity. Malati just had a baby, and they all had to live in different places. So they had a lot of difficulties they had to go through. But eventually, Shyamasundar, armed with a scrumptious prasadam cooked by Malati and Yamuna Devi, wasn't just tasty, it was presented so beautifully and so professionally. He brought an apple pie to the Apple offices, and in this began a wonderful relationship, which just propelled Krishna consciousness all over Europe. Now, Yamuna had this term. It was called Krishna magic, and she liked to use that when she was encouraging people to delve into devotional service and to be completely absorbed in the devotional attitude and see this Krishna magic happen. And it would happen for her over and over again. Now, her cookbook was an incredible project. It started with 1,600 pages. And Yogeshwar was the one who agreed. Unknowingly, he doesn't know why he agreed, but he agreed to produce this. And it actually turned out to be a beautiful cookbook. It wasn't ordinary in any way at all. And I wanted to read some of the reviews from the cookbook, from the chef community, because like he said, there were so many famous chefs, Julia Childs, and there were these French chefs. There were so many who came with their own cookbooks to this affair, expecting to win this award. And they were all completely stunned by Yamuna's cookbook. And this is what some of the reviews were about the book. It isn't the esoteric, limited audience work the title page suggests. It's one of the most important cookbooks in years. The American-born Devi, who is the disciple and personal cook of an Indian spiritual leader, spent 8 years off and on traveling with him in India and elsewhere, has assembled about 500 detailed, carefully written recipes representing the vast range of Indian cooking styles. But the recipes pale in the interest besides the best amount of information on ingredients, techniques, equipment, and critical culinary indefinables. Another one, such elegant dishes might easily grace the most sophisticated table without a whisper at the pedestrian concoction sometimes associated with vegetarian cooking. A prestigious 800-page labor of love illustrated with delicate line drawings and meticulous encyclopedic cookbook faithfully reflects philosophy that cooking is a spiritual experience and means of expressing love and devotion to the Supreme Lord Krishna. And I think that's significant that she got that point across even to the materialists. She received the highest reward from the cookbook world at the Seagram's Awards, and people had entered this for years expecting to get this award, and she was a first-time person who came out of nowhere and really impressed everyone with her devotion. So I will end this here. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti-vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Every year since Yamuna Devi has disappeared, we have this program here in Vrindavan, and we honor Yamuna Devi and all of the service that she rendered to Srila Prabhupada. We have her samadhi where we offer her worship, and every year my realizations of her depth of love and devotion to Srila Prabhupada becomes deeper and deeper in appreciation. In the Bhagavad-Gita, it's explained that which in the beginning is like poison and at the end is like nectar, that's spiritual happiness. And that which in the beginning is like nectar and later becomes poison, that's material happiness. So we had been invited in 1970 by Guru Das to come here to Vrindavan to help him establish this temple. And my whole goal in life was to get here to help Guru Das and Yamuna. And when we reached here, which was in July of 1974, it took 4 years to disentangle the services in America, but only one goal was there, just to get to Vrindavan to help Guru Das and Yamuna. And this happened to be the lowest point of her devotional life, because it was just before the debacle when Prabhupada was going to arrive and find out that the temple wasn't ready. And Yamuna was in intense depression because she wasn't communicating with Srila Prabhupada. It was Guru Das. Guru Das was the only person corresponding with Prabhupada because he was the temple president. Not Saurabh, not Yamuna, no one else. And Guru Das, out of fear, was assuring Prabhupada that yes, it'll be ready, because Prabhupada had made, it wasn't Prabhupada, but the first temple president, Kiradakshai Vishnu, who was able to acquire this land from Gita Devi Saraf. Gita Devi Saraf and her husband Kashi Prasad Saraf, they were Marwaris, very successful in the business world. And they not only donated this land, but they also donated the land that we have our Gohati temple constructed on. Very, very solicitous, very devotional. But Kashi Prasad Saraf had his business side, and he had gotten this land to make a petrol pump on the road. But he had put the land in his wife's name, Gita Devi. So though, make a long story short, because we're talking about Yamuna, finally the land was turned over after much drama, and Kiradakshai Vishnu had to promise them that the land would have a temple on it within 2 years, and that was in 1972. So they were given 2 years to build the temple. Now, it took more than 2 years because by 1974 it just wasn't ready. We'll see the pictures. And when I arrived here with all, great hopes, one of the first things that Yamuna told me was, it's a dog-eat-dog world. It's a cutthroat world. And I was we're in Vrindavan, what's going on here? I couldn't understand what was, I had never heard that in the classes before. And then more and more was coming. She was so depressed because she knew that Prabhupada was going to be displeased with them. And then when Prabhupada finally came, the bomb exploded and Prabhupada was very displeased. And as was mentioned by Kripanidhi Prabhu, after Prabhupada went to his room and all the leaders were there, white-faced and looking down and not being able to say anything, blaming each other for why it wasn't ready. Finally he asked Yamuna, what is your opinion? And Jamuna's opinion was that, well, we don't have any pujaris even. Nothing is ready. The devotees, there aren't enough devotees to even open a temple here. So we can go back to how did it come to this? Because Prabhupada, this is our Prabhupada Lilamrita time from 5:30 to 6:30, and we're just at the place where Prabhupada was just about to embark to America. And Prabhupada had his dreams, how he was going to fulfill his spiritual master's instructions for bringing Krishna consciousness to the West. And he foresaw temples and devotees and books, and he told just an unknown person sitting on a bench with him in the park in New York City, he said, there are temples, there are devotees, there are books, but only time is separating us. So now was the time. Prabhupada he wanted to start his phase 2. He felt that he had completed spreading Krishna consciousness in the West. He wanted to bring his devotees back to India and conquer India with its own culture, the Vedic culture. And he handpicked about 40 devotees who he felt were mature enough to set a proper example of what Krishna consciousness is and what Prabhupada was able to accomplish in America. And Guru Das and Yamuna, of course, they were leaders amongst them, being some of the eldest devotees in the movement. So Prabhupada started in Bombay with them, and we have here a picture. This is the end of the Cross Maidan festival. We've all heard about how successful Cross Maidan was, 20,000, 30,000 people coming daily to hear Prabhupada and to see the dancing white elephants. And then Yamuna single-handedly, she was the pujari. She would worship the deities on the stage right next to Prabhupada. And she arranged getting donations for a beautiful procession at the end of you see all the thousands of people, they're coming from Cross Maidan back to Akash Ganga. And this was all masterminded single-handedly by Yamuna. This was her brilliance. She was able to do this for Prabhupada. The things that she did, none of us can even hope to, even to remember the things that she did, what to speak of do it ourselves. So here she is bringing the deities back to Akash Ganga with thousands of people following her in the procession. Go on the next. These memories aren't in chronological order. It's kind of like Srimad Bhagavatam. It's just remembering. Because honestly, each year, because you have to remember, things started out with dog eat dog world, and my trying to accommodate all the wonderful, great things that I had heard about Yamuna and her in her state of depression when I first met here. So every year, I'm learning to appreciate her service more and more. So this is Srila Prabhupada when the first time he took the devotees in 1971 to come here to Vrindavan. Now Yamuna, with all of her hard labor, which is, I call it first initiation, she got a very bad case of hepatitis which turned into jaundice. And she became unconscious and high fever for 2 weeks. Anyone here has ever had jaundice? Yeah. Anyway, you're initiated, right? He was our temple president in Delhi for so many years. So she had her first initiation of jaundice, and she couldn't move for 2 weeks with high fever. And the devotees were all cramped together there in Bombay. And she had nowhere to recover, so she found a closet, and she was sleeping in the closet on a shelf, just so she could rest. And when Prabhupada heard of her condition, he came there to the closet, opened up the door, and told, he asked for her symptoms, and she explained everything. He said, it sounds like you have jaundice. You'll never get better here. He arranged a room right next to his with sunlight and air, and forced her. He would sit there and force her to eat peta. He said that was the cure, which with jaundice, it was so bitter she couldn't tolerate it, but he forced her to eat it. And then they were coming to Vrindavan, and she was really too sick to come. He was going to bring that first tour. So she came out of the place, I guess it was Delhi, and Prabhupada said, well, you're too sick to go on the bus with the devotees. So Prabhupada kicked all the men out of his car and had her and Gurudas sit with him in his car. And amazingly, on the way, Prabhupada had them stop at Ajay, where our Gurukula is and our land. And he said, there's a very special well here in Ajay. And he made the driver go to the well so they could all drink that special water. And then Gurudas was talking about, Prabhupada was coming, and he was expecting Prabhupada to talk about Krishna and, the glories of Vrindavan, and suddenly Prabhupada says, cement. And he pointed to a water tower. He said, we must make a tank like that. So, Prabhupada was always thinking of, So there's Prabhupada with Yamuna in the back, and Prabhupada would tease her. She said 4 times, and this would usually happen when they were driving in the cars. Prabhupada would quote Chanakya Pandit's verse, the sloka, that never trust a woman and a politician. And then he would look back at her and smile. And he would ask Yamuna, 4 times it's happened, what do you think? He said, oh yes, Prabhupada, absolutely correct. You can read in Srimad Bhagavatam all the qualities that the women have to overcome, And then Prabhupada would tell her, he said, but you are not a woman, you are a Vaishnava. Next. This is the bus where all the devotees crammed in together, and Prabhupada wouldn't let her go in the bus. And go on. Oh, now you see, Yamuna, she said her whole life she had to struggle with overweightedness. She looks like a concentration camp victim in this. This is the Calcutta temple. And the GBC there, the devotees were starving practically. It was very difficult in the early days here. We don't want to remember, we kind of block it out. But you can see here the devotees, what they looked like, and especially Yamuna. There was just nothing for the devotees to eat, and the maintenance was, we didn't have a devotee care department in those days. And they were just waiting for Prabhupada to come. And Prabhupada came, and he had every single devotee in the temple speak about what their problems were, what their complaints were. And then finally the GBC, now I have to get the wording exactly right. Srila Prabhupada, my only intention was to execute your divine grace's will. And this is Prabhupada's response. Is it my divine grace's will that the devotees should be disturbed? So Prabhupada, seeing the condition of the devotees and understanding that the GBC at that time he was actually trying his best. It was a very difficult situation. This is when they first got 3A Albert Road, and they were trying to get Mayapur. Prabhupada explained that, yeah, he understood, he heard all the complaints, but he said, actually, we're not here for this. We're here to go back to Godhead. And he was able to uplift the devotees' consciousness to the point they were able to cooperate together again. So throughout Yamuna's first volume, she emphasizes 3 qualities for us to advance in our devotional service. It's the qualities that Rupa Goswami mentions in the Upadeshamrit: enthusiasm, determination, and patience. So she kept those 3 things foremost in all of her services throughout the year: enthusiasm, determination, and patience. And this is what Prabhupada taught her, that if she would keep these 3 things prominent, then she would be able to make advancement. He would tell her wonderful things. You cannot purchase a ticket to go to the land of Vrindavan. You must go there by serving a bona fide spiritual master and following his instructions. So we've heard, over the years, we'll hear things. You can't buy a ticket to go to Vrindavan, but where it came from, we don't always know. So when you read Yamuna's memories and the memories of the devotees who lived with her and knew her, then you find out when these things were said by Prabhupada to her, how it becomes, the manifesto for all the devotees in the movement afterwards. In Calcutta, at this time, Prabhupada realized how wonderful these pandals were. So he had a big pandal in Calcutta, and he wanted, I think, 10 pandal programs in Calcutta in each of the different parts. And the first one was, it was marred by the Naxalites. They sent a message to Prabhupada, quit India or die. And all the devotees were, the same thing happened in San Francisco. The Black Panthers, they threatened to kill Prabhupada. And Gargamuni and Brahmananda, they didn't want Prabhupada to attend the Rath Yatra, so they were taking him all this way and that way so that he couldn't get there. But because Prabhupada understood Calcutta, what he did was he invited the Naxalites to come and gave them a nice reception, and therefore everything became all right in that. So because Prabhupada had personally sent them there, Yamuna was telling that story. You can go on to the next. Yes, this is Mayapur when we first got it. This is how Mayapur looked, and the devotees, they built a thatched roof for Prabhupada, and of course Yamuna came there. The Radha-Madhav deities, they were the ones being worshipped at these pandals. But then when Prabhupada finally got the land, he said that Jananivas was a brahmachari, part of the group. He would sometimes be there, sometimes not be there with the group traveling. And when he saw how Yamuna was worshipping Radha-Madhava so beautifully, he developed a desire to also worship like that. So she trained him how to do deity worship. And she also trained Jananivas how to repaint the deities. So he was trained by her. And he says about her, let me see if I can find it. He said that he saw her to be mature in her devotional service, and she understood Srila Prabhupada's mood and character, and that was what inspired him in wanting to follow in her footsteps in the deity worship. Next. Yes. So when Prabhupada also was in Mayapur, it was March 1972. As soon as the land deed was signed, Balimardhan and Tamal Krishna Maharaj had gone there. Prabhupada brought all the devotees to have the ceremony, yes, the cornerstone. And he had them, there's a list in Yamuna's book, the 5 different types of things, 5 of 5 different types of things, 5 different types of jewels, grains, flowers, waters, like that. And they had to collect everything. And then after the installation of the Sheshanag, and all of these ingredients were put in there by Prabhupada and his godbrothers, Prabhupada decided to pay a cordial visit to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's only living brother, who was Lalit Prasad. And he lived at the ancestral home of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in a place called Birnagar. I think it's about 70 miles from Mayapur, something like that. And Yamuna and other devotees went with him, not many. Jayapataka Swami went, Yamuna was there. So this was the home, one of the buildings there, and everything was disintegrating. So Prabhupada, he offered to develop the place, and Lalit Prasad, he was agreeable, but Lalit Prasad's disciples were not. So Prabhupada went the first time, and you can go on to the next picture. This is Lalit Prasad. He was giving Yamuna instructions. He immediately, just like everyone else, whether it was the Prime Minister or the brother of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, everyone who met Yamuna, they saw her special qualities and they gave her special attention. So he started to instruct her, and he gave her different instructions which were quite different from the way Prabhupada instructed us. So she became confused, and she asked Prabhupada, and Prabhupada settled things. Then on the second trip, when Prabhupada went to finalize everything, everything was canceled. They wouldn't allow the devotees to do anything at Birnagar. And Prabhupada, he was saying, well, isn't that offensive that we're willing to do all of this and you're not allowing us to? And he kept repeating that, but there was total silence. And then Prabhupada, later when he left, he said, it wasn't offensive what I said because I was just asking a question. And then Prabhupada gave the instruction that none of his disciples should go there anymore to meet Lalit Prasad, except for Yadubara to take pictures of the places. So some devotees didn't follow that, and there was big confusion. And I guess that confusion is still going on because the teachings that Lalit Prasad gave were very different. In fact, he would sometimes criticize his brother, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So Prabhupada wanted to protect us from that. And Yamuna immediately was able to decipher that when she met with him. Next. Yes, can you put it up a little bit more? Yes, No, up. Yes, there. You see that everyone has seen that picture on the back of the Krishna book, but who knows where that came from, that picture. So Yamuna explains all of that. When Prabhupada, he had gone to Madras, and then Vishakhapatnam is his godbrother, Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Maharaj, who loved Prabhupada very much, had a temple there. And he invited Prabhupada and his party to come there. This is the first time that the Gaudiya Math, anyone in the Gaudiya Math, opened their arms to Srila Prabhupada and his disciples. And they were very loving together during that time at Vishakhapatnam. And they took a trip to a nearby holy place called Singachalam. And that place, that temple, has been existing since the time of Prahlad Maharaj. It went into ruins, the deity was buried, and then when Pururava and Urvasi were flying over that area, Urvasi in a dream was told this is where the deity is, and they resurrected the deities and made the temple there. It's supposed to be the place where Prahlad Maharaj was thrown off of the cliff by the demons. So Prabhupada took the devotees there, and there's a beautiful, it's like an amphitheater with the temple in the center and mountains surrounding the whole temple. It's absolutely magnificent. Lord Chaitanya went there, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati went there, and there's a whole forest there of flowering trees, and there's so many champak trees there that the fragrance is all throughout the valley. So what Prabhupada is holding is Nanda Kumar. He picked this is a real champak flower. It's golden. Prabhupada told the devotees that's the color of Lord Chaitanya. And he picked this flower and gave it to Prabhupada. So that's where that picture was taken, at Singachalam. Next. Yes. Now, there's a whole series of these pictures. I only gave one because Yamuna is in this one. Yamuna was able to, because of her love for Prabhupada, she was able to come very close to Prabhupada through the singing, through the kirtans and the bhajans. And she learned them, like Prabhuji was talking about. Just after the record was recorded, she was just playing the harmonium and she was singing Bhaja Hure Mana. But she sang the words backwards because she didn't understand Bhaja Mana Hure. So later, next time Prabhupada saw her, he said, why did you say, it doesn't make any sense, why did you mix up the words? Because George Harrison had put the song onto the record. So Prabhupada personally trained Yamuna, and she, wherever she was, she would continue with her kirtans. Beautiful kirtans here, everywhere. So here, Prabhupada is singing his favorite song, Hari Hare Bipale, Janama Goinu. And Yamuna is holding the microphone for him. And the pictures, now normally, because Vishaka had joined here in 1971 with her husband, Dyarubara, they were also married by Prabhupada here in Vrindavan at Saraf Bhavan, which is torn down now. So Yamuna would, have Vishaka take pictures, and that's why we have so many pictures. There was Vishaka there, and also Gurudas, he was a professional photographer. So in Yamuna Devi's book, there are 900 photographs, because she had the opportunity for these photographers to take so many pictures of her with Prabhupada and all of the wonderful morning walks when she would be walking alone with Prabhupada. And like at Tittenhurst House, Prabhupada stopped, and it was very wet in England, as we all know. Prabhupada had to wear boots up to here, And he stopped and he told Yamuna, one rock has jumped into my boot. So she took off his boot and took out the rock, and then another rock went in. So all those picture sequences are there in her book. So in this sequence, Prabhupada is singing the beautiful song, Hari Hari Bifale, and you can see his expression, how he was going to ecstasy while singing this. So Yamuna, she had that same quality of going deeply into these bhajans. Next. Yes, this is at Vishakhapatnam, Prabhupada enjoying with his loving godbrothers, which was very rare because, for instance, in Madras, his godbrothers made newspaper articles against Prabhupada. So not everyone was favorable, and Prabhupada, he used that as a lesson for all of the devotees. Their main criticism was that Prabhupada mixed the men and the women, and he was making mlechas into Brahmins, the usual, criticisms. And Yamuna, she understood, I'll give you her words. Yamuna, she said that it is unfair for women to think that he had not gone far enough because Prabhupada sacrificed so much to allow the women to take part in the Krishna consciousness movement, because he saw in the West how they were living together. There's no difference in the West between men and women. But coming to India, there was proper etiquette that had to be followed. And the Western devotees had to learn that etiquette. So Prabhupada, even at the cornerstone laying in Mayapur, instead of talking about the glories of Mayapur and things like that, Prabhupada, he was talking about, and Yamuna, he was telling them different cleanliness rules that they have to follow. He was telling them that you can drink water from a loda, and you can also use that same loda when you go to pass stool, so long as you wash it 3 times with Mayapur mati, This is what Prabhupada was discussing at the cornerstone laying. And then he was also saying, because the devotees didn't understand any of these things, and all the godbrothers were sitting there, and they were critical, because he would have to teach the devotees, you have to sit on your left hand when you eat. You can only eat with your right hand, and you're not allowed to take anything from your plate and put it onto anybody else's plate. This is the basics that Prabhupada had to teach these first devotees, and we, over the years, have learned it. He told them also at that cornerstone laying that if you're wearing silk, you can even pass stool if you're wearing silk without having to wash it. So Prabhupada knew what his godbrothers were thinking, and publicly, right in front of them, he was trying to train his disciples how to live here in India, because they didn't have a clue. So he was so happy he was very happy being with his godbrother in Vishakhapatnam, but it was a very different experience in Mayapur. And he said so many things about Mayapur and Vrindavan, and he said so many things that Yamuna has expressed to us. We'll get to Vrindavan, but about Mayapur and Vrindavan together, the reason Prabhupada wanted the Mayapur and Vrindavan temples was specifically for his Western devotees, surprisingly. Because he knew that the Westerners could not live like the Indians. They had to have comfortable accommodations. They just couldn't do the austerities that the Indians were willing to undergo. So Prabhupada, he predicted that in the future, just like, where is it? I'll try to, just as the Bengalis were coming by the thousands for parikrama, one day thousands of Westerners would come in the same way to Mayapur. So this we see is happening now. And not only that, but Prabhupada, he wanted a city for 10,000 devotees, and that's also happening now. So about Vrindavan, of course, the two places, Yamuna should take special care of the devotees. This is an instruction Prabhupada gave to Yamuna, and she did it. She kept the devotees alive in Mayapur and Vrindavan with her cooking and her care during the early festivals. Yamuna should take special care of devotees when they came to Mayapur, Vrindavan. And the reason Prabhupada was having the devotees come was for these two reasons: to taste the mercy of Krishna consciousness in the holy Dham, and to become more enlivened in their Krishna consciousness so they could enthusiastically go back and distribute books and do other services. And Prabhupada explained to her that devotees need a taste of sadhana in the holy Dham, because in the Western temples, we were just concentrating on preaching. We didn't have any real, strict sadhana because we had to get out and distribute books. And he said that, all right, I'll wait for Vrindavan because there's a lot about Vrindavan here. So, next. So, this is little Saraswati, 3 years old. And someone had given Saraswati a 6-inch pure silver deity of Krishna. So Prabhupada knew that a little 3-year-old was not qualified to take care of a silver deity. So he insisted that be taken away from her. And when she couldn't find Krishna, she had ecstatic symptoms. Prabhupada even quoted about the 6 Goswamis, how they're wandering here and there looking for Krishna. He quoted that whole sloka from the Sad Goswami ISKCON, because she was looking for Krishna everywhere. Where is Krishna? Who took Krishna? Is he here? And Prabhupada, he was playing along with her. Oh, is Krishna over there? Is he on the windowsill? Is he on the chair? And she ran looking at all these places. And then finally, Saraswati figured it out, that you have Krishna. And she went over to him, and Prabhupada pulled out. He had gotten a new deity for her made of some other material and gave it to her. So Yamuna saw all this, saw how expert Prabhupada was and how loving he was, even with the littlest child who was part of their party. So next. Yes, this is Pishima. Pishima was the female counterpart of Srila Prabhupada physically, and she had so much devotion, also a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Harinam Diksha. And wherever Prabhupada went, whenever she could, she would follow him to that place. So Yamuna first met Pishima in Calcutta, because that's where she lived. And she considered, Yamuna had many teachers, especially for cooking. And some of them she considered her mentors. So Pishima was one of her mentors. She learned so much how to cook for Prabhupada. And she had the greatest respect for her as well. So she would serve them together. She would make Prabhupada a thali, and she would sit Pishima across from him and also serve her a thali at the same time. Down here is the prasadam. She's eating on a banana leaf. And when they were sitting together, Prabhupada would tease her, tease Pishima, because Pishima didn't know a word of English. She told me once, ABC, 1, 2, 3. That's as much as she knew. So any communication with Pishima had to be just, hand talking, that's all. So Prabhupada would tease her and tell Yamuna, he said, she says that it's water, and I say that it's fat. And he was hold up his arms, with all and Pishima wouldn't understand what he was saying, and she would just, and so he would tease her like that, and Yamuna would see, this brotherly affection. And he told Yamuna that when we were little, we used to fly kites together. And my kite would always go higher, because I would pray to Krishna, please make my kite go higher. So she had a lot of personal association with both Prabhupada and Pishimi together. Yes, so now we're coming to when Prabhupada first sent Gurudas here to try to get the Lakshmi Rani Kunj palace at Keshigat. It was coming along nicely, and then a devotee offended them and they withdrew everything. He had sent a silver Singhasan for the deities as a gift, and the devotee refused it, thinking that they would have to pay for it, and sent it back. And after that, so, like that, devotees really had to learn proper etiquette here. And Prabhupada, he gave them very strict rules for living in Vrindavan. I'll read some of them. Prabhupada explained that there were about, at that time, 1971 and 72, there were about 25,000 residents, 5,000 being Bengali widows, 5,000 the caste Goswamis, and the balance, many of them were merchants. So these were the instructions that Prabhupada gave to Yamuna for living in Vrindavan. Number 1, you should not intimately deal with any of them. Number 2, do not reveal your mind to them. Number 3, for etiquette, be very congenial. Number 4, associate enough to get your work done. And number 5, which is a repeat of number 1, never become intimate with them. So Prabhupada was training the devotees, and that parampara came down to us. He trained them in Jaipur about how to deal with the monkeys. Let me find that. Because these monkey rules are important for us here. If I can find it. I didn't have time to organize so well. Anyway, with the monkeys, I'm sorry, it's important, so I'll... Yes, because in Jaipur there are langurs, as big as people. And just like we have our little monkeys here, so they had the langurs there. And when Prabhupada was staying there for the Pandal program, the langurs would all, the house where Prabhupada stayed, the langurs used to stay in. So it was their house. So they were just, all over the place. So Prabhupada had to have a guard. And he told the devotees, always remain neutral to them, and neither make them our friend or our enemy. So that's a good rule, that we have to just remain neutral to them, not a friend and certainly not an enemy. We had a lot of experience with that here in Prabhupada's house. So when Prabhupada sent Yamuna and Gurudas to take over the project here, and with the construction, there was Kiradakshai Vishnu was the president then, and he had taken initiation from Prabhupada in England and came here to assist Prabhupada. He was very instrumental in getting this land. It was he who picked the paper that said yes. But he didn't like Western women at all. So, and he particularly didn't like Yamuna. So he wrote a letter to Prabhupada, and 3 other devotees also wrote letters to Prabhupada complaining about Yamuna. When Yamuna was, first they had, because there was nothing here, they had to stay at the rooms at Radha Damodar on the roof. And he complained about her so-called misconduct. And this hurt Yamuna to the core, that they had complained about her, because Yamuna was very loving and very caring to all the devotees. And one of the sannyasis was having a very difficult time, and he would confide in her. And she was a very good listener. So she would listen to him and try to help him. And they took that to be misconduct. So they complained about her to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada didn't write directly to her. He wrote to Guru Das. And later, there are letters you can read where Prabhupada explains to Yamuna, you have to live like the Indian women live. You only associate with your husband. You only speak to your husband like that. But Yamuna felt that Prabhupada had not fully supported her in this incident, and she was very deeply hurt. And this is the beginning of the intense difficulties that started here in Vrindavan. Later, Prabhupada, what he did was he sent Kiradakshai Vishnu back to London. So Prabhupada did very much understand the situation and did protect Guru Das and Yamuna. He knew that Yamuna was not misbehaving. It was just improper mentality of the other people. So when Yamuna came here, Prabhupada was giving instructions which temple he wanted here, which deities he wanted here. He always wanted the center altar to be Krishna and Balaram. There was a painting, this is the painting that we've printed here. It was made by Bharadraj in New York around 1971. It was on the back of one of our Back to Godhead magazines. So Prabhupada decided this is the deity form that he wanted. So in order to, the picture was there, but what Yamuna did was she had a Bengali artist. They have a special art form. You see during Durga Puja, they make the deities out of clay and mud and straw. So she had a Bengali artist in Vrindavan make samples of how the deities should be. And but what he did was he covered the clay with atta, with a paste of wheat flour. And the deities were being kept in Prabhupada's kitchen at Radha Damodar. So eventually the mice ate the deities. So then they had to make a smaller version. So Prabhupada, he wanted Panchatattva on the first altar, and the Ashtasakis on the other altar, and Krishna and Balaram both big and small with the two cows in the center altar. But then he would change his mind. So they would make everything, and then Prabhupada would make an alteration. He told them to go to the Ashtasaki temple and see how they set up the Ashtasakis, but there just wasn't enough room on the altar. So you can go on to the next one. Yes. This is Yamuna when she was living at the Radha Damodar temple. She never lived in the rooms. The devotees lived up on the roof. And Prabhupada explained to her, he said that in England, you became waterproof because there's so much rain in England, and she learned how to survive all of that dampness. And here in Vrindavan, you have to become fireproof because living up on the roof, no electricity, and she had to live inside the room, which was like an oven, and the men all got to sleep out on the, on the terraces on the roof. So she explained how she survived. A bucket of water, you wring out the cloth, you spread it, and then 10 minutes it dries up all night long, doing that. So Prabhupada understood. So he said, in Vrindavan, you have to become both waterproof and fireproof, and then you'll be able to live in Vrindavan. So Yamuna, she was learning as she went around, all around India, all the different types of cooking. Even in Jaipur, Prabhupada, he had her look out the window, and the ladies, they were just out in the fields. They got some rocks, they made it into a stove, they got some sticks to make the fire, and their meal was chapatis, dal, and dahi, and achar. In Rajasthan, that's how they eat. So Prabhupada said, you just learn by watching all the different types of cooking going on. So Yamuna had become quite proficient by that time. And when Prabhupada came, she knew how to make the chapatis on the, with the neem wood and the right type of, the night before you have to grind the Lahore atta, the lahordana, everything. She knew all of that. And Prabhupada was very pleased with her. So you were mentioning that there were different qualities of cooking. So she explains that there were altogether 4. If Prabhupada would rub his stomach, it meant that it was 3rd class. If Prabhupada would do like this on his chest, then the cooking was 2nd class. If Prabhupada went like this, it was 1st class. And if Prabhupada went like this, it was excellent, perfect. So, and when Prabhupada lived there, because Prabhupada, he didn't have time to live at Radha Damodar anymore, but he told the devotees, in other words, he told Yamuna, that his rooms, the Radha Damodar temple is the hub of the spiritual world, and his rooms at Radha Damodar are his eternal residence. So he always wanted the devotees to keep those rooms. So, and when he did come for the 1972 month of Kartik, by that time Shruti Kirti had become his servant. And he made Shruti Kirti stay with him 24 hours a day. Because by that time, Prabhupada explained that it was like a battlefield. And there were envious people. So he needed Shruti Kirti to stay with him at all times. And Prabhupada, there were so many people. Yamuna explains that during the rest of the year, the Radha Damodar temple was quiet. But during Kartik, everyone comes there because it's Damodar month. And Prabhupada was getting disturbed in his room by all of the crowds of people coming. So he moved up to where Yamuna was staying, and Yamuna had to go stay with the devotees. And Prabhupada, he got a infected toe. And the infection was spreading up, so his leg was all swelling. He never complained about it. But Yamuna could see what was happening. And he had her grind neem leaves and mix it with turmeric in a compound of mustard oil, and wrap that on his whole leg and toe, and put banana leaves around it. And within a few days, the infection was gone. So she learned these wonderful things. So this is Yamuna at the kitchen. And you see, you're not supposed to eat and cook in the same place, but there was just a kitchen and there was the sitting room. So what Yamuna did was, you see there's some bricks here. So she made a division in the room. And she would cook on one side, and Prabhupada would take prasadam looking out the window to Rupa Goswami's samadhi on the other side. And the water, there was no water. There was a well, but when there was water, it came 1 hour a day in the morning. So she would fill up and, things like that. Next. This is how Yamuna set up the kitchen. You see the bricks, everything was, we didn't have anything in those days. So she just took some bricks and put some wood on top of it, and that was how she was able to set up her kitchen and make wonderful prasadam for Prabhupada there in that simple kitchen. Go on. Now this is another one of Prabhupada, of Yamuna Devi's mentors. This is Anand. We would call him Anand Maharaj. He was actually just a brahmachari. He used to cook for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And when Prabhupada was in Vishakhapatnam, he joined up with Prabhupada. So he came to Vrindavan and he cooked for the devotees. And he was such a gem of a Vaishnava. We learned so much from him. And Yamuna, she learned so many preparations from him. And she also learned how to serve the Vaishnavas. He would feed everybody. He would feed the animals. She said that sometimes 10 peacocks would be outside of the kitchen. And there was a dog. His name was Dogwood. He had asthma. And this dog, the devotees adopted him. He would feed the dog. He would feed everybody. Just like with Bibi Chaitanya, they would put little sugar to feed the ants. You know, they had this concept of you must give everyone prasadam. So she learned really how to, and he would practice yoga, do all of these intricate yoga asanas before he started his cooking, and he would climb up trees and get all types of things for the devotees to make medicine. He was such a wonderful devotee. So Prabhupada said about, yes, in Vrindavan, we would show our potency by, number 1, worshipping the deity nicely, number 2, having nice sankirtan, and number 3, through prasad distribution. So by Prabhupada's mercy, these 3 things are going on very nicely. Yesterday, 29,000 people took khichdi. I mean, where do you... and worshipping the deity, no one has a standard of deity worship like our temple. And you can go on. Here, now, their lordships that we're worshipping, that we've given our whole life to, they were designed by Yamuna Devi. When she was in Madras, their host was Mr. Balu. And they had Radha Krishna deities in their home. And Yamuna fell in love with their Radharani. This is their Radharani. Next. You see her? So she took this picture, and that face of Radharani, next. There's our Srimati Radharani, taken from that picture. And the Balus, they took such nice care of Prabhupada and the devotees that the festival deities that Yamuna would worship, they were called Yamuna's deities. She had gotten 3 sets of clothes made for them here by one of the Murtiwalas, the Mukutwalas, Lalit Prasad. And so she would only have 3 sets of clothes for the deities, but Prabhupada was so grateful how the Balus took care of the devotees that he told Yamuna, you have to give 1 set to their set of deities. And she tried to not hear him, and she tried to not do it, but before they were leaving, he said, did you give this a, oh, yeah, I will now. Because of their deities, we have beautiful Srimati Radharani. And the other thing is the Balus, they asked Prabhupada that they wouldn't offer their obeisances to the deities because they said that they were their mothers and fathers. The parents aren't supposed to offer your obeisances to the children. So they, and Prabhupada said that they're devotees, but they have, due to association, they have a misunderstanding. So they asked Prabhupada to speak about Rasa Lila. And Prabhupada said that we don't discuss Rasa Lila in public because we're not qualified to understand unless you have completely given up family life, given up all attachments, you can't understand Rasa Lila. So, but they kept insisting. So finally Prabhupada told them that you might be qualified to hear Rasa Lila, but I am not qualified to describe the Rasa Lila. So he wouldn't speak Rasa Lila to them. So here we have Srimati Radharani. This is the very beginning days, and she's so beautiful. Can go on. There she is.
Did Yamuna paint them, or?
Yamuna, no, Bhardraj painted all the deities. They lived, we lived with them. They lived in Prabhupada's house, and they lived where Prabhupada's 3 windows were. They were there first. He would paint them. And the Brijbasis would come to the windows, say, we want it, because they were not facing the windows, We want darshan, but they weren't allowed to have darshan until they were installed. So he would paint all the deities. And even on one occasion, Prabhupada came in, and Bhardraj was painting Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati. And Prabhupada, he said, very nice, but something, I think the lips should be a little darker. So Bharadwaj was very grateful that Prabhupada came in and saw his work. And then afterwards, when Prabhupada came, because the deities were in the big room, we all had to move into Prabhupada's prasadam room, and we all lived there. Yamuna was allowed to stay in Prabhupada's house. Prabhupada told her, actually, this is your house. I only come to visit sometimes. So because she stayed there with all the deities, we all got to stay with her. So we all lived with their lordships in Prabhupada's little prasadam room until the installation of the deities. Again, these are some of the pictures of the construction. This is, which part of it is it? This might be the back portion. Of course, the courtyard is there. Everything went on in the courtyard. You can go on. Yes, this is the front gate. There's a sign that says ISKCON before the wall was built. Now, next, here, these are the foundations. Just like right now that we have this huge machine making the foundation for our new cultural center. That machine cost 8 crore rupees, and it's digging down. Well, we didn't have money. We didn't have machines. On the whole temple was built with one machine, and that was the little generator for when there wasn't electricity. Everything else was done by hand. So now these are the foundations of the temple at the very beginning. This is the tamal tree. And the workers used to hang their clothes on the tamal tree. And no, but they were working, they were doing something. But when Yamuna came in like 2000, she was very unhappy to see that we were using the tamal tree for advertisements, for all kinds of stuff. So Prabhupada explained that this tree is non-different from Srimati Radharani, and therefore at one point he was sitting with his godbrothers. There were 4 of them together in his room, and Prabhupada was saying we should cut the tree down because the devotees will not offer proper respects to the tree. And his godbrothers were saying, no, you can't cut the tree down, and Prabhupada, it was like devil's advocate. So then they decided, they all locked arms together, and they walked over to the tree, and they were all lovingly going together to make a decision whether to keep the tree or not. And they convinced Prabhupada. Of course, Prabhupada would have never cut the tree down, but he was just imploring with the devotees that Srimati Radharani, she would embrace the tamal tree, that there was one tamal tree at Rupa Goswami Samadhi, sacred tree, one sacred tamal tree at Sevakunj, and we have a sacred tamal tree. So he told her that, and we used to do this. Should I stop? No. Okay. What's it?
Fisherman's friends.
Oh, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
But it's sealed. Here, you can take one out for me. So he told her that after the arti, you take the whole arti tray to underneath the tamal tree, and thank you. And with the dirt from under the tamal tree, you should polish the arti trays. So we did that. And then he said there should also be, you should make a thing, so the water didn't go in. So that was all done. Now this is where we have the Bhagavatam class now. You can see the windows at the front and the big door where the door will be. You can go on. This is Sitaram in Alwar. It's not a clear picture. You can go on to the next. This is the Yuvaraj of Alwar. He was a great devotee of Sitaram, and Alwar is not far from here. And he, just like everyone else, he took such a liking to Yamuna. They would visit there, and she was so impressed by his level. He would spend 6 hours a day on his puja of Sitaram. And during the emergency that we all had to live through, the government tried to take all of the wealth of his temple. And he came out on his elephant and they killed him. Yeah, to protect the deities. So he sent his tailors here. And they made beautiful outfits for all of the deities before the grand opening and made patterns and everything Rajasthani style, very beautiful. So Yamuna specifically, she was told by Prabhupada to go to all of the temples and to learn their method of worship and their shringar. And she has now a whole book, Yamuna's deity book, of her illustrations. And more than any other temple, she took help from the Radharaman temple because their standard is so high. So we have all of the laborious efforts that Yamuna went through to make the basis of this temple. They had to, Prabhupada wouldn't give them any money for the deity worship. They had to collect all the money to get the deity worship paraphernalia and all of the dresses made. He said all the money has to go for the construction. You have to collect for the deities. And they were able to do that. But after 1974, when Prabhupada left to go to Mayapur, because Prabhupada he got very sick after the debacle of not opening the temple, they left. Yamuna and Gurudas left, and they went back to the West. And Yamuna learned during that time, of course this is the second volume of her book, which I didn't get to read and the time is over anyway, maybe next year. We've heard about Sharanagati, how wherever Yamuna went, she was able to inspire the devotees. And Prabhupada many, many times told her that you have to teach everything that I've taught you, otherwise you'll become envious. In another place, Dinatarane was saying, otherwise you'll become proud. So Yamuna took that as one of her first instructions, that anything that she learned, she was always ready to give that, to share that with the other devotees. And as a result of that, we have beautiful standard of worship all over the society because Prabhupada personally trained her, and then she trained all of us. So all glories to Yamuna Devi. Hare Krishna. Jai. Want to see if there's any other picture after this? I think it's over.
There's a couple more.
Yes. This is the drawings of the deities that went to Jaipur, and the cow drawings. Anything else? Yes. Prabhupada called Yamuna in when she was very depressed. She didn't want to go to see Prabhupada. And Prabhupada explained to her, it was 1974, Prabhupada's house was still being constructed. There were only like 4 rooms. And he's holding his head because on the roof, they had workers, you know how they break up the bricks to make the, so right on top of Prabhupada's head, all day long, they were breaking up the bricks. He said, he was just trying to explain to Yamuna that we all have difficulties. Even I had, he was saying, even I have difficulties. I have to tolerate this banging on my head all day long. So Prabhupada was he was empathizing with her, and at the same time, he understood how depressed she was, but she had to understand that even he was having difficulties. It's not that only she was having difficulties. And we have to remember that. We have to remember all the sacrifices that Prabhupada went through in order that we're sitting here today, all the difficulties he went through. That's why we're going through so carefully the Prabhupada Lilamrita, to understand all that Prabhupada had to do so that we could live comfortably in the holy dhams and serve him here. So this Yamuna learned, and she was able to take Vrindavan all over the world with her when she finally did leave Vrindavan. Hare Krishna. Jai. Jai.